Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Burning Question series by Fantasy Football Scout. In this series, Pras and I, Sonaldo, talk about the hot topics for the week, and we have a very, very interesting topic today. But before we introduce it, welcome Pras, my co-host.
Hey, Sonaldo, how are you doing, man? It's been a couple of weeks since we last did it, and interestingly, the last video we did was bigging up Bowen, and he's now basically the hot property. So, good to be back and good to be doing this again.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you were speaking highly on him, and I brought him in last week thanks to you. So that paid off very well, and now everybody's moving towards him. So great to
Nice.
see. Pras, please tell us. You're on a crazy streak right now, and moving up towards the number one position in the world. So how are the last two game weeks, and especially this game week for you?
Quickly, look, I think the last game week, the midweek was a small red, which is why we didn't do the video. And then now we've come back and it's a nice, healthy green. And I'm up to about 19K. Look, I think the two guys who came up outside of Salah and Trent were Ben Davis, the hero, and Son. And of course, Foden got a few points as well. But my team is absolutely decimated. And we'll come to this at the end of the video. But I got 65 points, 19K. I have, as I said, every time on this video, I've never been this high this early before Christmas. So very happy. How was your week?
Yeah, fantastic. So I had a red arrow the previous week. I feel like a lot of these 50-50 calls have not gone my way, especially, for example, Kane and Son. But this week was an interesting one. I started off after the first game with a huge differential in Bowen. And, when you start off like that, you think you're going to have the greatest week of your life. And it went downhill from there. Somehow managed to scrape pretty much a gray arrow. So 82K now, but looking forward to everything from here on out. And I feel like I'm in a decent position, but again, there's so many 50-50 calls. So this is why I'm very excited for today. So to all the viewers, thank you so much for joining. Today is our first live session. So if the cameras go crazy and this and that happens, please do understand we are learning as we go. So today's topic is something that we're very excited about, and there seems to be a shift coming in FPL and many 50-50 decisions arising. Pras and I certainly think there's a new template coming our way, and it would be good to speak on these emerging assets. With that being said, today's Burning Question series will cover basically what the new template will look like. And in doing so, we're going to do four things. Is number one, review the current top 10K template. Number two, check the fixture ticker. Number three, cover the main decisions we face briefly. And lastly, we have 5 great wildcards from some top managers and top people that have shared with us this week. So I'm very excited to look at that. Pras, do you want to add anything here before we get into the top 10K template?
Yeah, sure. I think what's important to emphasize is the wildcard drafts are essentially, think of it like where if you're not on a wildcard, where you want to get to, because these people on wildcard are obviously have unlimited transfers. They are looking at the fixtures and planning who they want for the medium term. Us managers who are not on a wildcard have to basically use that as a barometer. And so what we thought, exactly as Sonaldo said, we want to show you these wildcard drafts, not that if you were in a wildcard, what are you going to pick? It's so that as you think about that wildcard structure and you think about your own team, then you can look at, okay, these are the 3 or 4 people I need to move to, or this is the guy who maybe I can't afford, and so maybe I should focus somewhere else. So that's basically the idea of how can we tell you or how can we help you shape the next template, because the previous one is not doing so well anymore.
Yeah, especially the big at the back has been not good at all the last, I guess, 3 game weeks. So certainly there's shifts coming. And before we go, could you explain the background you have there? I see the great Eric Cantona there. I know you're a huge United fan, so please enlighten us on your, I guess, United love.
Well, it's the team I've followed since 1994.
Oh God.
Cantona has always been my favorite. I'm giving my age away, but Cantona has been the guy because of whom I started following football. Because I used to be in middle school, basically semi-interested in football, and then this guy comes in and I mean, to be honest, I started following him closely when he did the Norwich Kung Fu kick.
Yeah.
But then when he came back to United, that was the time when the class of 92 was coming up as well. Hence my Gary Neville grab as well. It was just a time when I started to fall in love with football, and it turned into something much more than I would have ever imagined, having moved into London as well in 2010, which is when I started playing FPL as well. So I tend to receive a lot of gifts and Secret Santa presents of Man United things. So yeah, I've got a lot of Cantona memorabilia.
Yeah, and just to add to that, before I became FPL Sonaldo, my Premier League love came from Jisung Park, and when you're from Korea, you at that time there was a very limited amount of Premier League football, and Jisung was a huge part of growing the game out in Asia. So maybe deep down inside, I have some United blood in me as well. But yeah, go ahead. So let's get into the next first slide because we have a lot to cover. So what we have here is the current top 10K template, and I would love for you to introduce it and show us maybe the kind of opportunities that may be coming up.
Yeah, so the idea here is what we're showing is this is effective ownership and ownership for all the players on live FPL. And the idea is to tell you that these are the guys that are most owned today. But if you go through the list, outside of the top 5, which is Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Jota, Cancelo, and James, everything else seems to be up for grabs. This is why we thought this is the right time to do this, because you could make a case for anyone below this to be in or out of the template. So let's quickly go through the names. So apart from the 5 I mentioned, you have Livramento. The fixtures have turned. There may possibly other defenders who could be better value at 4.4. He's, I think, now 4.6. You have Rafinha, again, a big fixture turn. We've heard that Bamford is now injured. Phillips is injured, which is even more important for the medium term. So he looks maybe, some can hold, but maybe a sell. Ramsdale, I think, is fine, but I wouldn't call him necessarily template with so many other goalkeepers in and around that price bracket. And we'll discuss a couple of them as well as part of the wildcard discussion. You have Antonio, down here still well owned, overall 50% almost. But to be honest, you can make a case for going without with an exciting other option in midfield from West Ham, or you could choose to double up. So he's a guy who you could look to either have or move on as well. So I wouldn't call him template as such. Then you have Alonso, who's looked shaky since he's come in. Chelsea's defense we'll talk about as part of the big at the back or not discussion. But again, not really template. Kane, definitely not template. My sympathies with anybody who had him over the last few weeks, especially those that moved from Vardy to Kane.
That would be me as well.
Then you have Reguilon, again, decent, but I wouldn't call him template. Sanchez, not template. Son has got other issues beyond just tough fixtures. Mbumo, I think, has gone through his tough fixture or has gone through his easy fixture patch. I guess Dennis now. So effective ownership at 12% is the 6th guy who I can say is more creeping into the template. But even him, we're going to discuss whether he is the better option than King or not. Then you have Gallagher, not in the template. Vardy, not in the template. So the idea of showing this slide is out of all the people who are owned more than 20%, only 5, the 5 big guys, are the ones to hold, and everything else now is fair game. So it's a very, very big moment for FPL managers to really think about who are the other 10 players that they want to build into their squad.
Yeah, absolutely well put. I mean, we'll dive into it, but you're right. There's a shift coming, and I feel like it's not going to make or break your decision, but I feel like you can definitely move up the ranks with the changes that's going to come in the next few game weeks. So let's move on to the next slide, which is the fixture ticker. And I'm sure everybody has already done, enough surface level research on the fixture ticker. And, the fixture ticker, you have to take it lightly because you can, not lightly, but you have to take it in, different perspectives, because you could look at maybe 3 game weeks, you could look at 5 game weeks, 8 game weeks, 10 game weeks. It's just how many game weeks you look at. What we have here is looking from game week 16 to 23, which is 8 game weeks. And I think that's a good indication of kind of long-term assets. Of course, there's a lot of, external factors such as AFCON and COVID and injuries and this and that can affect a lot of different things. So if you look here at the fixture ticker over the next 8 game weeks, we notice that Watford, United, West Ham are at the top of the ticker. Man City, Arsenal are up there as well. So great fixtures for several teams that have not been really considered recently. So again, that means that there's going to be new emerging assets for us to identify as well, and obviously try to hop on them early, right? And so a lot of selection dilemma. I think there's going to be some fine margin calls, such as, do we go with Bowen? Do we go with Antonio? Do we double up? Do we go with King, Dennis, double up, so on and so forth. At the bottom of the fixture ticker, we see Leeds, Wolves, Newcastle, and Chelsea. I did mention Chelsea there just because we've been kind of saying a lot, Pras, about how it's important to hop on the 3 best teams in the league. However, maybe there's an opportunity here to jump off some Chelsea assets, especially Alonso is the one that springs to mind. So right off the bat, we'll have to make decisions on Rafinha. I mean, I think it's an easy sell, but he, again, has decent fixtures from game week 20, for example. What do we do with Alonso down the line? So a lot to digest here. Also, is there anything that stands out to you here, Pras? I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think just a couple of more things to add is one is the AFCON, which you mentioned. So that has been now brought forward. So now AFCON would be starting from 3rd of January, which basically means that after Boxing Day, which is game week 20, people would be off. So this has massive implications for 2 reasons. Number one, we only have 5 game weeks to prepare for this. Now, a lot of people may just have Salah going to AFCON, but Dennis could be involved as well. Cornet, anyway, is injured, but he could be involved. But then the broader implications of how the team works. So Mendy going, how does that affect Chelsea? So it's things like these that we need to keep in mind, that people are leaving. And the Salah factor actually becomes a very big one.
Yep.
Because we're just in such a comfort zone of capturing Salah every week. We have to sort of think of who else could we go for during the weeks that he's gone. And now it's going to be an elongated period. It's no longer 2-3 weeks. It could be up to 5 weeks if Egypt makes the quarterfinal, for example. The second thing I want to mention in the fixture ticker, so it's usually fairly easy to read the ticker, but now we need to add the fact that there is also the time difference between the fixtures is also key. So one of the key crunch periods is game week 19 to 21. 19 to 21 is basically the famous week where you play on a Sunday, which is Boxing Day, and then you play again on a Saturday, which is New Year's Day, and in between you play again. So in 6 days, most teams will play 3 times. And that basically, is a massive period of rotation. One of the reasons I went for example, Ben Davies, is when you look at 19 to 21, Spurs have a very good run that period. So you can get a player that can be benchable, and you will need your bench from 19 to 21. So just a couple of other factors that we need to keep in mind. And then last but not least, everyone is, the Spurs news is now coming out. I think they've asked for a postponement. There is a chance that game week 21 is the first time where we see a double game week for Spurs. So again, some things to look out for in the fixtures coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I love how you broke it down there. I mean, 19 to 21 crunch period. I guess that's something I didn't even consider, but for you to point that out, I'm sure it's going to help a lot of the viewers as well. So nicely done there. Let's move on to the next slide, which is the main decisions we face. And oh no, the man part is underscored in blue. It's because I took a screenshot from Microsoft Word, so apologies there. But here we go. So main decisions we are facing. Man United players, Ronaldo, Rashford, and Bruno. I would like you to go first. Thoughts here?
We've only had 1 game so far, and we're not doing a deep dive here on each of these. What we're doing is basically let's discuss that these are issues that we need to tackle. But look, I think out of the 3, Ronaldo and Rashford are the 2 that I would tend to focus on, simply because they're the front 2 of the 4-2-2-2. Now, I know that you did an excellent analysis for the scout and then thereafter on why the midfielders could become options as well. But it simply comes down to price for me. I think Bruno is just too expensive. If you're going to spend that much money, you'd rather go for a Ronaldo. I don't buy the fact that he's on pens, by the way. I think it's still a rotation. Bruno's just a very nice guy, much like your Bruno. And he's in the chat as well. Hey, Bruno.
Hey, FPL Bruno.
So, and I think he just let Ronaldo take one because he just feels like Ronaldo is the hungrier of the two. Now, that may continue, and Ronaldo could be on more pens. But I think the bigger reason is him covering for Salah as the captain option when you need to. I don't think I'd be comfortable captaining Rashford. You know that Ronaldo is going to be, one of the questions was, is he fit enough to press? Is he going to be energetic? I mean, the guy was running on the 90th minute.
Yep.
He is full of energy. And whatever Ralph has said about Ronaldo, he's going to be pivotal to the team. Now, in that crunch period, 19 to 21, could he miss one? Yes, he could. But so could Salah, so could James, so could Cancelo. Doesn't mean we don't go for him. I think he's great value. And it's one way where actually Son owners have a decision to make, whereas Kane owners can easily shift to Ronaldo. So for me, it's between Ronaldo and Rashford. Despite the fact that Rashford is cheaper, I think Ronaldo is worth going for the captaincy. Now, you could argue that Rashford is better because you could use that 2 million or 3 million saving and convert a Brownhill to a Bernardo Silva. Now, if you can do that and that helps your team, fine. And we look at a draft, one of the wildcard drafts that has Rashford instead of Ronaldo.
Yeah.
So think about your team structure, but in isolation, I think Ronaldo is the better pick. A
question here. Does Rashford get plenty of minutes, no rotation? Are you worried about him getting benched?
I think he should be first choice. Cavani is coming back. Martial is injured. Greenwood could play. Look, we'll see today. I think it's expected that both Rashford and Ronaldo will be rested. Whoever comes in, if Greenwood impresses, he could be an option because Greenwood more naturally is a forward than the position that Ralph is asking him to play in this, or will ask him to play. So he's not a Sancho type role who can move from left to right in the middle of the park. He's more of a forward who can make the runs. So it remains to be seen, but I wouldn't say that he wouldn't get the majority of minutes over Christmas.
Yeah, so I can quickly add to this. I mean, on Scoutcast, I pretty much did a sort of a tactical analysis. So if you guys do want to check that out, basically it just showed how important Rashford and Ronaldo is going to be. One of them is going to be making a run behind the defenders at all times, and it seems like a very balanced structure that Rangnick's trying to do. But in the end, they're just so much heavier on the left, just better from the left, attacking from the left. So I do see a lot of threat coming from the left, which is why Telles and possibly Luke Shaw is going to be a great option in my opinion as well. Shout out to FPL Bruno, who was on Ted's deadline stream last week and said that he thinks Fred is going to be a good asset, and people were giving him slack for it. And guess what? Fred scored. So another decent option for, I think, 4.9 million, but I'm probably not going to go there. And so for me, in the end, if you have Harry Kane, which I am a Harry Kane owner, no-brainer decision to go to Cristiano Ronaldo, one of, if not the best of all time. So I'm very excited to bring in Captain, maybe not captain, but Cristiano into my team, and I'm pretty sure that he's gonna deliver the goods. I mean, when you mentioned that he ran in the 90th minute, that's all you need to know about this guy, right? Like at this age of 36, 37, still producing the goods, he's still scoring, and also that will and that mental edge is something that's not recorded in the statistics and in the books, right? So I really think that hopefully he delivers for us. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good cover. And Bruno, again, I think it's just way too expensive and not worth it at this point in time.
Yeah, worth mentioning Dalot as well. He should be.
Oh yes.
Look, I think from what we've seen so far, but so far is only 2 games. He could be an option, and at 4.4, actually, you don't mind if he doesn't start. 1 in 3 games, because usually that's not the position you would sub somebody on. I mean, Wan-Bissaka is perfectly capable of playing 90 minutes. So if he's even semi first choice, I think he's a great option because. One of the things that the heat map showed was a lot of the attack for United is coming from the left. So Dalot had a lot of working to do on the right side. Again, we're basing this all on one game. It could very well be that Man United felt that the left side was the area to attack in that particular game, and this may change. But I think Dalot came out really, really well, And I'm excited actually to see how he is, because Wan-Bissaka, for all his great tackling ability, is just not a great crosser, passer. So I can totally see why he would go for maybe a slightly more attacking fullback who's not as good defensively. And let's also remember, it's the fixtures,
Yeah.
both for Ronaldo and for Dalot. It's the fixtures, because when the team you're playing is going to sit back a lot, you don't actually have to do a lot of running because you have more possession. So every time they get the ball, as long as you can press very quickly, you'll pretty much stay in their half the whole game. So, you need somebody who's better at attacking. So I'm actually quite bullish on Dalot as well.
And by the way, just to add to that, I literally looked this up, but Crystal Palace and United combined, when they lost the ball, the majority of the balls lost was on the Crystal Palace half. So it just goes to show that Rangnick's basically saying, hey, if you're going to lose the ball, just lose it in their half and just press. And Dalot is actually the second guy I'm looking at after Cristiano. I think that he's going to lock up that spot. I just don't see AWB coming in to unless they move to a 3-back. I just don't see him playing that role. And again, the last person I do want to mention quickly is De Gea, because if I was in a wild card, I'd be very tempted to bring him in. I mean, the green sea of fixtures plus clean sheet potential. And I think in an interview, Rangnick also said that something about we're going to score plenty of goals. It's about defending or something like that along those lines. So a lot of great assets, I think, in United. But let's move on to the next one, Pras, and please go ahead. Back 4 versus back 3.
I mean, do you want to start on this one? I'll add.
Yeah, I mean, not much to say here, except I'm very convinced that the back 3 is going to be the new template, just because, we don't think of the two Chelsea wing backs as necessarily defenders, but Chilwell is levels above Alonso, personally speaking. And Alonso is a great asset, and he's a great player, and this and that. But I just think that there's emerging 4.4 and 4.0 and cheaper options here and there that we can transfer the funds to and use that to upgrade elsewhere. So I'm just, maybe it's recency bias of just all these clean sheets for Chelsea getting wiped out quickly. If anything, if you're going to go back 4, I still think that the City double up may be the most viable option because their fixtures are good and there's just been a frustrating clean sheet wipeout here and there. But yeah, what do you think?
I totally agree. Look, I think Chelsea double up. The issue is Kovacic is, I think, as injuries been extended, Kante is out. So suddenly they're less. I think yesterday in the Scoutcast they showed a table where in the last 3 weeks they've been probably 12th in terms of the XGI. Again, small sample size, but it basically shows that the team is regressing a little bit with the lack of a midfield anchor. So for me, Alonso is a great option, don't get me wrong, but the issue is if you have him, hold him. But if you're on a wild card, the idea would be he's going through back issues, and that's always a red flag when you're getting into Christmas. I mean, the guy has back issues, so maybe tonight, Thomas Tuchel will try somebody else. What if he has a good game? What happens then? Can Alonso with the back problem actually play 3 games in 7 days? So it basically raises questions. I totally think it's fine if you have Alonso and James and Cancelo and Trent, but it's also fine to downgrade one of them. I think it's also important to talk about Reguilon. I think he's showing fantastic attacking stats. He's actually getting into the box. So if you were to say he's only 5.2, I think, if you still count him as premium, I think he's worth it once the Spurs fix, this first potential blanks are out of the way. I think after this period, so game week 18 onwards, he could be a very good pick, good fixtures over that crunch period. My same reason for going for Davis. And then the double or potential triple game weeks coming up in January. So I think Reguilon is also a good one to downgrade Alonso for if people had him.
Yeah, and good on you for getting Ben Davis in there with a easy 15-point haul. So congratulations. We're live for the first time, Pras, so I think it's good for us to maybe tackle a couple questions as we go. I have one for you here from Metallica01. He says, do you think the amount of fixtures over December equals less possible clean sheets? Very good question there. What do you think?
I think there's 2 arguments to this. So I'm not going to give it a yes or no answer. There's 2 arguments. So the argument for more clean sheets is the fact that actually the bigger teams are fitter. They've got a bigger bench. They've got bigger players. So they will actually, steamroll teams a lot more. So you would think if Burnley's played their third game in the week, they'll be tired. So will they really score against City? Maybe not. So that's the one argument for yes, more clean sheets. The other one is, of course, that even the City players could get tired, the Chelsea players could get tired, games could be more open. So yes, there is potential to leak, but I don't think I've never seen any statistic to show that there is a increase in or decrease in the number of clean sheets over the Christmas period. The only one I've seen is during the end of the season, and more particularly game week 38, which we have lots of time to talk about, is the one which has actually shown statistical evidence that people are more laid back and there's more goals on offer.
Yeah. So many good questions, guys, but we have so much to go through. So let's go on to the next one, which is a very hot topic in the community. Antonio, Bowen, West Ham targets. Do we go for both? What do you think, Pras?
So when we'll cover the template at the end of this video, by the way, what we're going to do is we're going to try and help the viewers with what the template should look like. And actually, Bowen is strictly yes. So he should be in it. If you're planning your transfers, the next midfield transfer has to be Bowen or City mid, whichever one you don't have. Antonio is more of a question mark in terms of if you hold him, keep him. If you're on wildcard, it's a question whether you go Antonio or a second City mid or somebody else. So we'll cover this later, but I think between the two, Bowen is showing the far superior stats. Even on the eye test, he looks the guy, who's pressing, who's making the runs. Antonio is drifting too much on the left. He got a very jammy assist to Masuaku, which was not an assist, and I benched him, so I'm really upset. But it's good. Maybe it's a sort of assist that doesn't even give the striker confidence, right? Because he probably doesn't even know he had the assist. So I don't even know what to make of it, but I'm going to back him. I personally have him in my team. So there's absolutely no reason to sell him. He can switch on in a moment. He's still the guy who scored 4 against Norwich last season, had the fantastic start. And if you look at the big picture, and if you say 15 game weeks is the big sample size, then he's still in the top 10. But we do know that from recent stats that he's just not doing it. So I think if you're on a wild card, it's a question. If you have him, you keep him. That's my view.
Yeah, you know what? First of all, shout out to you because this is our third episode, and I know from the first one, which is a couple weeks ago, you were very bullish on and Bowen, and I think that played a subconscious effect in bringing him in this week. So thank you there.
Yeah, good research should always help. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think that I get it. Right, Antonio's playing kind of on the side and maybe not getting in the central positions that we want for him. But at 7.9, and I bought him at 7.5, sold him at 8.2. I lost 0.1 value, right? So I'm going to look into, I think, Game Week 18 when their fixture, they have Arsenal in 17, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, so...
Yeah, the next... Yeah, 17.
Yeah, so as a Bowen owner, I'm looking to bring in Antonio around that time and possibly double up. I just like the idea of attacking fixtures, and I think that if he can just... show some signs in the next 2 games, I'd be very interested in doubling up. But again, we'll talk about it as we go. The next one.
But just a word on West Ham. Sorry. I wouldn't look at the fixtures as such as... the Arsenal fixture is not difficult, right? What I would say is they've beaten Chelsea, they've beaten Liverpool this season. So there's no reason to think that Arsenal is a difficult fixture. West Ham are looking very, very good. I'm highly impressed by... So... Of course, you get him when you can, but we shouldn't use that as the reason that we wait.
So we're going to talk about City midfielders next, and then after the discussion of the City midfielders, I'm going to ask you a question regarding Bowen and the City midfielders. So be prepared for that. So let's go to the City to target. Hot topic: Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, who's playing out of his mind, a magician. Just marvel to watch. And we have the, I guess, injured Foden now. So, yeah, enlighten us. What do you think, Pras?
Look, firstly, I would direct everyone to Seb Vassel's thread. He
Amazing.
did a couple of evenings ago. That has got all the stats. So we're not going to use stats here. We're basically just going to give you a summary of what we think. So, look, Foden has a niggle. I don't think it's an injury. He was taken off as a precaution last night. But ultimately, it gets concerning. Like I said with Alonso as well, right? If your player is coming off, whenever he starts, you're not sure what time he's going to be taken off. You don't know if he'll be benched. And it's already City we're talking about. So it's concerning. As somebody who owns Foden, I'm going to keep him this week because City play Wolves and Leeds is the more money game. So it's worth holding on to if you have Foden. But let's say you have a blank canvas again, thinking like if we have a wild card and you have no City mids. I think at the moment it's a close call between Gundogan and Bernardo, and I'll tell you why. Gundogan is far superior in terms of underlying statistics than Bernardo Silva. He looks to be more involved in attack, both in terms of XA and XG. Now, the only issue is what happens to Gundogan once KDB comes back. So once KDB is back, usually KDB takes the right center mid position, and Bernardo will then be displaced. So where does Bernardo go? Does he go to the left? Does he go to the right forward, which usually Jesus plays or Mahrez plays? Or, he goes to a false nine, which Foden was playing, or Foden was actually a number 9, but Bernardo could play number 9. So if you were to purely say, I want a piece of this pie and I want the guy who plays the most minutes and he's going to be involved in a tap in every other game, then Bernardo's your guy. If you want the guy to say, I believe in Gundogan's minutes, and I think he will continue to play because Pep will find a way because Gundogan is doing really well this season, then Gundogan from an expected stats basis is better than Bernardo. So that's the view. It comes down to what kind of manager you are. Do you believe in this? The analytics team thinks form is not really tangible. But if you do feel that Bernardo has this confidence flowing in him, he's going to be more attacking, then go for him.
Yeah, I think you summarized it really well. I love this. I love talking about football and FPL, and I can go on forever here. But Seb doesn't. Okay, if you're a Gundogan owner, go watch that Scoutcast with Seb. I think it was yesterday, where the confirmation bias is beautiful. I mean, he makes you feel very confident being a Gundogan owner. The reason I brought him in was I'm going to challenge you here because I maybe not challenge, but I know people are saying that when KDB returns, it's going to put Gundogan's effectiveness down. And yes, in some ways, right? It really depends on how Pep utilizes them. But when I started noticing Gundogan was in game week 9 versus United, and I've been speaking about this for a while, where both of them were deployed centrally like we imagined. And they took turns attacking that central area, right? And I was just like, wow, Gundogan, like, is anybody noticing him right now? Like, he's making these central runs, like, really dangerous. And the next 2-3 game weeks, he hit form, and then he had a double-digit haul, and then I brought him in for Foden, and he disappeared. So, or he got injured. So I just think that if you're a Gundogan owner, I wouldn't panic. I think it's fine. You just don't know where the points are going to come from. And someone mentioned in the chat the abundance theory, and I'll repeat what this is that over the last 2 seasons, if you look at the December crunch, and I guess throughout the season, Man City score in such a spread, right? You just don't know who's going to score. In 19 and 20 season, in the December crunch, there were 17 goals and like 7 or 8 different goal scorers. So it's just how much of the pie do you want, right? And I've heard arguments for each side. I mean, some top managers are saying double up, go for Bilva and Gundogan and take more slice of that pie because Man City's gonna be bosses when it comes to playing their football. So I just think that there's multiple ways to go about it, but really fun discussion here. And let's go to the last topic, which was King versus Dennis, another very, very important 50-50 call here. But I have my answer, and I'll quickly say it is Joshua King. I think that if we look at this potential AFCON call-ups, Dennis is going to leave soon, most likely. He's at least in the 40-man, I think, team for Nigeria. So I'm sure that's only a couple game weeks. I know this like hot topic about how great Dennis is and how good his form is, but if you look at the games, he's playing so wide. I just really prefer the guy in the central positions that's going to be, more of a threat zonal wise. Plus, he's on pen. So that's my simple thinking there. I don't want to overthink this, but what do you think, Pras?
Look, I agree. Today, Pranil, late riser, wrote an article on the Scout, so check that out on exactly this topic. Without taking away his thunder, I think the consensus is at the same price. King was zero point 0.4 or zero point 0.5 more than Dennis just 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
So at that point for me, this was more a discussion. So if you hold on to Dennis, that's absolutely fine because he does have this right forward, coming into the box. He's obviously overperforming his XGI massively, but he's then got an eye for a goal. So there's no issue holding Dennis if you have him. But if it's again a clean slate, go for King for reasons you outlined.
Yeah, perfect. Shout out LR. Love you, Pernil. And now we get to the fun part of the show, which is we will look at 5 different wildcards from some of the top managers in the community, and we will start with the great and the kind FPL Nima, who is joining us in the chat. Hey,
I see
Nima.
him. Yeah. Hey, Nima.
Hey, Nima. So yeah, let's get it going. So this is Nima's team. And what we'll do is go through all 5 wildcards and then kind of summarize everything at the end. So what this does is kind of bring information, and we kind of present maybe not a ideal wildcard team, but what the template may look like moving forward. So why don't you go ahead, Pras, because Nima sent this to you. So what do you think?
Yep. Okay. So what I like about this is it's there's a movement from 5 at the back to 5 in the mid. So I think that takes advantage of this because there's so many midfielders right now. We've talked about 2 city mids potentially. We've talked about Bowen. We've talked about Salah, Jota, Mount. There's the ESRs of this world, and potentially Rashford, Son when he comes back. So I think the time of having a Brownhill is coming to an end now. I still have him, and it's fine. But given the fact that we have many more enticing midfield options, I like the fact that he's gone for a midfield 5. He's gone for Ronaldo, which is great. He's able to fit the 2 premiums together. And the other commonality is that he's gone for a back 3. So this is a theme that we'll see across the wildcards on how players are going. Essentially, I think the decision he's had to make is, should I go Mount or should I go Antonio or shall I go a second city mid like a Gundogan? And it's a fair call to go Mount, I think, if he feels the fact that he will have more games. Chelsea have got okay fixtures over the next few. It's a price point where you can move to anybody, like I said. With Lukaku back, Mount is obviously more utilized as the guy feeding Lukaku. So I can see a lot of the logic here.
Yeah, Nima's going crazy in the chat, basically saying this is one of a million drafts. So we get it. We get it. We've been there where our camera roll is full of photos. But without giving advice, I think there's a couple things here that are interesting. The Mount pick is very interesting for me. I feel like he's a frustrating own because, once in a while he'll go crazy, but is he consistent? I'm asking you, Pras. Do you think he's consistent?
If he he's actually turned into everything that is non-Mount. And what I say is, when you buy Mount, what you're expecting is an assist a game and a goal every 3-4 games. So basically you get some weeks 8 points, some weeks 3, some weeks 10. So on average, you get about 6-7 points from Mount, which is basically your classic KDB-esque. So KDB light kind of position, KDB of last to last year, not this year. So that's the Mount that we know. But what he's doing is he goes to Norwich, scores, a hat trick. And then the last game, he gets a goal and an assist. So he's basically showing a spike. Whether there's a change in the way that he's playing or it's just coincidence, that remains to be seen. But I don't hate the pick at all. Whenever I see a player from the top 3 teams, because for the first time in a while, there are 3 teams and then there's a big gap. So if you're paying any money for a Chelsea, Liverpool or a City mid, I think that's fine. As long as you believe in the minutes, I think that's fine. By the way,
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I also see Nima has said he's got a version with Gilmore, Antonio, and Lamptey as the 3.9. Actually, 3.9 Brandon Williams is a shout because he's over since.
I got slack for that last week.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. They're like, why are you considering a Norwich asset? I'm like, he's a good bench fodder, Yeah.
And he plays. That's the main thing for 3.9. If he plays, that's not a bad route to go with. I think Antonio will outscore Mount in the next few. So I don't hate that, Nima, if you went there.
Yeah, maybe the last thing before we move on is I would not tell, but I think one thing that could be very interesting is to kind of diversify his defensive assets and to, kind of really attack the fixture ticker that we talked about is possibly, I know the potential in Dalot is there, possibly move him to Kufal, as he mentioned, and change Ramsdale to De Gea. Would that be of interest?
He's an Arsenal fan. He's not going to go to De Gea.
Oh, right,
I mean,
right.
to be honest, if I was on wildcard, I'd stick with Ramsdale.
Okay.
Me personally, because I got him also at 4.5. I can see whoever doesn't own him looks for De Gea, but there's a slight risk of De Gea basically sharing a few minutes. Now, I'm not here to scaremonger anyone, but just like you see in the midweek game here, you can't rule out that in the Boxing Day week, when De Gea has played on a Sunday, he gives Henderson the midweek. Whether that happens at Arsenal, I doubt it. I've not seen Leno anywhere. So it's just that little bit of that safety. So I would personally stay with Ramsdale. It also is slightly cheaper if you went for Ramsdale earlier.
Okay. Yes, let's move on to the next one. So we have a wild card from Holmes from FFS Forum, and this is a no Ronaldo draft. So what do you think here, Pras?
So this is an interesting one because you know what Holmes has done. So Holmes, by the way, is on the Fantasy Football Scout Forum, very active guy. I know him also through another forum we're on together on Nirvana. So he's on wildcard, and he's not going with Ronaldo, but he's not going with Rashford either. So in the next one, we'll see a Rashford draft. But what he's saying is that, look, I don't know about United yet. I'm going to keep 2.5 million in the bank to jump on the right United player when we know more. So I actually like the strategy as well. Of course, you miss out on a potential haul against Norwich, but what you're getting against that is you're not forcing yourself to go Ronaldo or Rashford, and you're taking your time. So he's got two City mids, which we, as we've talked about, is a good option. I think Foden is fine. And I think one thing we didn't talk about is Foden still has the best stats and looks the best, for example, in the last game out of the three. If you were to go for two and you can afford a miss this week, and we'll see what Pep says on Friday, I think a Foden Bernardo double up is completely fine. Looks good, in fact. So I like his midfield five a lot. I like the Watkins shout. Watkins is, we've talked about him in the previous sections. He's really coming to his own under Gerrard. So I like it. It's also a good price point to move to DCL later because you may not want to shift from Antonio. So it's you're backing a Villa team over a Watford team. Something that doesn't sit right with me is some drafts having both Dennis and King. I mean, do you really want two attackers from a relegation threatened team?
Yeah.
So Watkins is a good option. Backline is quite similar. One thing I'd point out for those that may not know this, Spurs and Arsenal, obviously both North London teams, never play a home game together. So because of the policing security reasons. So if you rotate Davis with White, you'll have a home game forever for one of them every game week till game week 38. So that's actually a neat rotation.
Yeah. Personally, I love this team. I just think it's different. It's diverse. It's unique. And I think the kind of, what's it called? The potential in this team is enormous. I feel like you can spread. It's just well spread out, in my opinion. And people underestimate Davis. I mean, I just wrote a thread on him, and I think he's just as attacking as you said, the right side, right, in Royale. So again, Davis is a good shout there. He has all the important pieces as well as the difference in the double up in the City, which I don't know. I don't know about, but hopefully it pays off for home. So yes, let's move on to the next one, which is FPL.
Shout out to Elf Aussie. I see on the chat as well. He says no Mount or Foden. I think I buy that. I'd rather go Gundogan or Bernardo if Foden is injured.
Get on the Gundogan train, everybody. Okay, here we go. So we have FPL Dragon 29, and this is the Rashford draft. It's amazing. Oh, three drafts that are all so different. Which is exactly the point of this video today, Pros. It's like there is a changing landscape that's gonna make or break some managers in the next coming week. So, what do we have here, Pros?
So what he has done, not too different from others, in the sense of the team structure, but what he's gone with is Rashford instead of Ronaldo, which helps him have a better bench. So basically, you have, instead of a 4.4 midfielder or a 4.4 attacker, which is a dead spot. I mean, Brownhill or the others aren't really going to give you much. Now you have a Watford attacker. Whether that is the right strategy or not remains to be seen. Maybe Dennis can be Broha if he nails down a place, or Pookie. But I think what it gives him is a solid bench going into Christmas. Rashford is playing up top, could easily make a case for being value.
Yeah.
I just don't like it for all the reasons we talked about. Ronaldo versus Rashford. I mean, is he going to captain Rashford when Salah's out? I don't think so. So where do you go there?
One thing I really like about this draft is because of all these Spurs fixtures being, postponed and canceled, the double, triple game weeks might come up that we just have to keep in mind. And for him, it's going to be an easy transfer to Son. So I like that. I like that flexibility. And just a funny story, because I was listening to the Scoutcast, and Joe. I don't know if you brought him in or not, but he was speaking highly of Rashford, and all this like statistics and this and that, it didn't matter for him. He was like, I like Rashford because he's a nice guy and I want him. Very, very simple reasoning there. And Rashford's a great human being. So hopefully he bangs and starts to do really well. I like this team. The one concern for me is the double up on the Watford assets. Seems maybe a slightly overboard, but maybe he knows something that we don't know. What do you think?
Question from Chris in the chat on why no Fred in any of these drafts. So I think the issue with Fred is the midfield is crowded, right? I mean, who are you going to sacrifice if you're going for on a wild card? I mean, as I mentioned earlier with Nima's draft, there is so much value in the midfielders in this 7 to 9 million bracket now. That, or if you take 6.4 for Bowen as well, that do you really want to sacrifice that one spot for Fred? Fred is not a bad shout. He should be okay. But let's say if you go for Dalot and Ronaldo, do you not want to keep that third slot open for a Rashford if he opens up after Salah goes to AFCON or not? That could be a consideration. But look, Fred is one of those Kovacic type picks, right? I mean, nobody's going to say he's great, but he's going to keep ticking along. So not hating anyone who goes for it.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is the great Seb's wildcard team. So this one is another very interesting one. Double City, no Antonio. So we've shown 4 wildcards so far, with 2 with Antonio and 2 without Antonio. Very interesting. How many double ups do we have on the West Ham? We have 1 double up and 2 double ups. So interesting, we have 2 double ups out of the 4 as well. So just to briefly speak on the Seb's wildcard team, on the Scoutcast, what he was mentioning about why he combined Foden and Gundogan is he thinks Silva's, Bilva's kind of underlying stats and his performance is kind of overperforming at this point, right? I'm not saying he's not a good pick. Sometimes all this doesn't matter when you have the guy that's scoring every week and looks amazing, right? But his theory was that, okay, I'm going to take the statistically safer pick in Gundogan, and I'm going to take the potential in Foden and combine the two and take more of the slice of the pie and the abundance theory again. And, Man City's probably one of the best attacks in the league, if not the top 2 best attacks in the league. So I think that's his reasoning there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Seb. But so it looks like a very, very, solid kind of what we would expect in a wildcard team, except the Gaeta pick is a little bit wild here. But what do you see, Pras?
I actually heard his thoughts yesterday on Scoutcast, so I'll kind of defend it on his behalf. So Guaita, I mean, look, the defensive stats for Palace are elite. I mean, even with the tougher fixtures at the beginning of the season, these are, I think they're top 6, top 7 defense. But the issue is they keep conceding 1 goal. I think they've conceded in the 90th minute after after leading 3 times this season. So there's something there which doesn't make me comfortable personally. But if you went for purely XGI conceded, they're fine. It's a good goalkeeper. If you weren't on Ramsdale initially, he's the best cheapest option. If you know what I mean. Let's say he was on Sanchez and he wants to move. I think Guaita is the cheapest goalkeeper he could move to at that price. So I don't hate that at all. Also, I heard his thoughts that he was very hesitant on Ronaldo for the reasons of second premium, not going to captain now. Maybe things have changed after the AFCON news, or maybe the fact that there is a Ronaldo FOMO, which Seb will admit or not, I don't know. But he's now, it feels like transitioned to a Ronaldo draft. Earlier when he sent me to, he had a non-Ronaldo draft as well. And partly also finally due to Son, right? I mean, Son was a very perfectly decent option in the midfield. He was the one taking up that money, and now with the news that he has COVID, the fixtures get postponed. You just don't know where to use the money, right? So it's now down to Rashford or Ronaldo. Where do you use that money?
Yeah, I mean, before we move on to the next one, if I get the concerns with Ronaldo, right? But again, for Kane owners, it's a no-brainer to get to Ronaldo, and there's a strategic reason why, right? It's because you have Norwich, you have great fixtures coming up. Say he doesn't do well, right? Worst case scenario, he doesn't do well. You can go to anybody from him. You can 2 transfers and you can upgrade the midfield. You can upgrade the defense. You can go to any attacker you want. So if you have Kane, you got to take the chance, in my humble opinion. And Seb, I'm sure he knows what he's doing. So hopefully we'll get to see the final draft on Twitter soon. Let's move on to the last 2. This one is FPL. Geek Sweden. So we have back 4, Ronaldo, double West Ham, and Foden, and a weak bench with no James. So what do you think here, Pras?
Look, I when he shared the draft with me, I said, "Are you comfortable with the bench of Mankilo, Lucadia, and who's the other one? Brownhill." So that's basically who's getting you points. Nobody from the bench. That's a concern, but it's also stemming from the fact that he's gone for a back 4. This is the only wildcard draft, which is why we wanted to share this. The only one where he still believes in a back 4. Whether he's wavering on that remains to be seen. But essentially, this is not too dissimilar from others. Not to change your mind, FPL geek. But what I would say is if you swap Alonso for Lucadia, you get a better defender and a better striker. So 5.6 used for a king, 4.4 used for pick White, Davis, Dalot. So basically, then you have a solid first bench option, and you get to tap into a decent Watford fixture run. So this wasn't meant to tell people what to do on the wild card, but just a suggestion if you wanted to move away from a back 4.
Nice. Okay, the last one is our good friend FPL Partridge, also known as Ian, has double City and no Chelsea defense. What is going on here? Pras?
He is, FPL Partridge, for those who are on Twitter, doesn't need an introduction. One of the funniest guys on Twitter. Look, I mean, he gave his rationale for where he's thinking. He believes in the City double up because he thinks their defense is the best, and there's no doubting that. One of the people on the chat is saying they don't believe in not owning Ronaldo if you're not going to captain. I completely agree with you, by the way. And it's one of the reasons why both Sonaldo and I are bullish on Ronaldo. As an example, let's say in the next 4 weeks, Salah scores 50 points. Ronaldo scores 45 points and everybody else is 30 or below. This logic of saying, I don't want Ronaldo because he's not captain, or you still get 45 points, right? It's more than anyone else. So yes, go for him. I just wanted to address that question, that we're completely aligned on that. Back to FPL Partridge's draft. I think double City defense, I don't hate it if he thinks that the James rotation is lurking.
I love it. I actually personally love it.
I would still say it's worth the James cameo to go over. I mean, if you like the double City defense, maybe worth going for the 4th defender as the City defender. But look, it's his draft. We're just kind of going through what his thinking process is. He's gone for Smith Rowe. No draft we've looked at so far has Smith Rowe. I know he's overperforming his XGI quite significantly, and we talked about that. But if you already have Bowen, he's actually better than Gallagher, or Mbumo or Cornet. So actually, if you wanted to have a draft where you wanted 6 million mids, because by the way, not everyone's team value is super high, right? I mean, what I'm looking from here is his team value isn't the best. So instead of going for a second City mid, going for a Smith Rowe isn't the worst idea. And going back to the whole point of doing this, a lot of people could already have Smith Rowe.
Right.
And I think he's fine as part of the template if you didn't want to go for that City mid, and you could go for Bowen through maybe upgrading Mbumo or Rafinha.
And we have our man Williams in there, so I'm very happy to see that. And also, Pras, it looks like someone in the chat, Paul Friedman, just confirmed that Conte said Spurs have 8 COVID positive players and 5 staff. So certainly this game's gonna. Do they even play the Europa Conference game? I'm not even sure.
They have to.
They have to.
UEFA basically says, if you can get, I think it's 15 players or whatever out.
Yeah.
Then you have to play.
Okay.
The Premier League is more let's sit down, let's discuss. And because Brighton themselves have Duffy out, Webster out, I think Veltman's out, Dunk is in. Duffy is suspended, Dunk is injured. So they have no backline, which is all the reasons why we wanted to keep Son in the first place. But I think Brighton might just say, look, we're happy to postpone. What happens with the Leicester game would be interesting, because Leicester would be keen to play. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, well put there. It's really unfortunate because, first of all, their health is first and foremost, but Son was really finding his form. And people were asking me, should I drop Son and get to Ronaldo? And I was like, you're crazy, because he's gonna do so well. And I just know that he goes on these hot runs, and it's really, really unfortunate. So hopefully they recover. I'm not sure if Son's confirmed, but it seems like he has COVID as well. So
first players will be back in our teams, right? I mean, this is not a goodbye. It's see you later, because the doubles are coming. They have good Christmas fixtures. When Salah goes to AFCON, I can easily see the move of Salah to Son, or maybe Salah to Kane. Who knows? But it'll be a Spurs player.
Okay. So we are nearing the hour mark. I know the Burning Question series was supposed to be 30 minutes, but this week
ignored it. Since we've gone live, we've ignored that.
Yeah. That's out of the question now. So please don't give us slack for that. But here we go. So we presented some great wildcard drafts, and we thank everybody for all the managers for sending their wildcard drafts. So this is how we kind of organized everything. Some key bullet points. And so the first thing was David De Gea, Guaita, Ramsdale, keepers of choice. For you, Pras, who would it be? For me, it would be possibly De Gea or Ramsdale, but most likely dependent on your team. But what do you think?
Yeah, team dependent. But if you need a little bit of funds, Guaita is fine as well. But I think the standout pick to take advantage of the wild card. So if you were only addressing wild carders, I think De Gea seems like a very sensible out of the template, in fact, out of the popular pick.
Yep.
Ramsdale is very well owned, so you might as well just go for somebody. By the way, shout out to Rubber Ducky, who's in the chat.
Oh, is he here? Rubber Ducky, the king of spaces.
He's the big advocate of Bernardo as well. You missed that.
He?
But,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice to have you in, Rubber Ducky. Okay, so we have Liverpool triple, James and Cancelo not going anywhere. Not much to say here. Back four.
Yeah, everyone has them, even on wildcard. Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, what we're trying to construct here is the template. So we're trying to answer for you so if you look at the goalkeeper, that's 1. The Liverpool triple, James Cancelo, that's 5. So 6 players are pretty much remain from the template. Let's assume if Ramsdale continues to be there. So please carry on.
Yes. Back 4 has moved to a back 3, and we spoke on it plenty enough. And then, so there are 5 spots where the template is heading towards. I think this is the key here, is Bowen is pretty much I'm not going to use the word, but very, very important, right? And it seems like he was in pretty much every single draft. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was in every draft. Yep. So Bowen is probably this goes back to the question I was going to ask you, is if you're in the situation where you don't have a City asset, midfielder, and you don't have Bowen, or possibly you have one City midfielder and you're looking to either double up or go for Bowen, what's the answer here? Is it Bowen first before a City asset? I guess the first question, no City asset and you have Bowen in the midfield.
So sorry, if you have neither City asset or Bowen, right?
Yes.
I would then go for Bowen first.
Wow.
Simply because it's not that I have him above the City mids. I would only go for him first because then you would know a little bit more about Foden. So you would have the option to go for Foden in the midweek once you know how he's doing. So it's that peculiarity where I think going for Bowen could be better. But let's say Foden is fit, right? Guardiola says there's absolutely nothing wrong. I just took him off. He's going to start. Let's say it's never going to happen, but let's say he's going to start. I think going for Foden over Bowen would be the move for me then.
Wow. Okay. How about if you have either one of the City midfielders and you're looking to double up? Bowen is obviously you go for Bowen first, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would.
Cool.
So for me, now let's keep the count. So we've got 5 nailed plus Bowen. So we're basically making the template, right, of what we will have from game week 16 onwards. So we have 5 plus Bowen plus 1 City mid. We don't know if that's Foden, Bernardo, or Gundogan, but let's keep going. So that's 7 players.
Plus the keeper, which is 8.
No, I think I counted the keeper. So keeper plus 5, plus 3. Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
So 8.
Yeah.
So we have 4. 4 spots now to play around with. 3 spots in the starting 11 to play around with.
Starting 11.
Okay. So Ronaldo. Ronaldo is generally the go-to move from Kane. Would you agree here, Pras?
I agree. I think he's going to be template. He's going to be very well owned, if not next week, but then by midweek.
And I just looked at the 6 wildcards, and we have Ronaldo in only 3 of them. But I'm again, these are
we selected ones that didn't have. Even the ones that shared the non-Ronaldo draft have a Ronaldo draft. So I can say with some certainty that Ronaldo will be the popular pick.
Yep. Okay. So let's call that 9, and then we have the popular question in King versus Dennis. And I agree here because they're super cheap and they have great fixtures. Again, in the fixture ticker we mentioned in the second slide, they're top 3. So it makes sense to go for one of them. And you and I agree that we would go for King, right? There's no right answer here, but we would go for King.
If you had none. If you have Dennis, keep.
If you had Dennis, keep. Yeah, and then easy transfer if he goes off to the AFCON. And honestly, Dennis might do better he's a man in form, right? So again, no right answer here, but I just prefer King because of those zonal positions. And so that's 10 and leaves us with one last slot. And that slot could go to a second City mid, Antonio, Mason Mount. But what we're realizing is it's not going to be Alonso or Diaz. I actually, or Reguilon, sorry, because of the COVID situation. So I think that's the one that can prove to be a unique differential and could possibly also an Uber differential on top of your 3 additional bench options that could be very diversified. So super fun right now. I mean, there's so much going on. So who would you fill that 11th spot with without team dependency or any of that?
Second City mid, I think. So if I was on wildcard, I would go for the second City mid. But because I own Antonio, I'm very happy to have Antonio. So for us, the template therefore is as follows. You have, let's say, Ramsdale, and this is for anyone who's even not on wildcard. You have the James Cancelo, the Liverpool triple of Salah, Jota, and Trent. Bowen, I think people should look to get in. City mid, a lot of people have already. Ronaldo, you should try to get in. King, and then the 5th spot depends on where you are in your team setup. If you already have a City mid like Foden, you could go for Bernardo as the next one. Or if you had Antonio, you keep him. If you have Alonso, maybe just stick with the back 4. If you have Reguilon, just stick with the back 4 as well. So I think that's the slot which is less templatey. But I think to answer the ultimate question that we started with, this is what we think where the transfers will take us into the new template.
Fantastic. Okay, so we go to the final slide of the day, which is our teams and team plans. And sneaky Pras, who I speak on WhatsApp a lot to kind of pick apart his brain and ask him who I should transfer in and this and that, always tells me never to make an early transfer, wait for the deadline, wait for the news. And this guy before we went live today said he made 2 transfers yesterday. So,
Not two.
uh,
Wait till you hear it. You don't know what I've done.
oh
I'm
yeah, I
going to
don't
tell
know,
you.
and he didn't tell me yet because he
You
wants to
are
get the
going
reaction.
to
Yeah.
you are going to get shocked.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Here we go.
So it's my team, right?
Yep. Yeah. This is your team.
So issues I had. Armstrong didn't play the last game, and he's looked generally not great, and Broha looked very good. Tony out with COVID, Son out potentially with COVID, Davis out with COVID, Brownhill is Brownhill. So and Foden potentially out. So that's basically my team is decimated. So it's an opportunity to say, look, I've got 2 frees, and I'm going to kind of take a hit and go to the players that we've all talked about. So I wanted Ronaldo.
Wait, before you go, can you explain your kind of your theory on hits? Because when I first heard you, Pras, and you're kind of giving your history, you told us that you're a manager that's not afraid to take hits. So yeah, could you maybe explain that a bit before you explain your team?
Yeah. Now, so look, hits are for me always a way for me to catch up with the template. So this couldn't be a more perfect example of when I'm open to taking hits, because I've seen the template where the template is going, and I'm about 3 or 4 moves away from that template. And my current team is basically not looking great. So even though I've had a 60K green arrow in the last 2-3 weeks, I just don't see the team that I want. And therefore, I'm open to taking hits, even though I have 2 free transfers. I see it as I'm not only fixing gaps, I'm actually getting ahead of the game. So once I show you we won't have it here. I'll share it later. It looks like a wildcard team. It looks like a lot of the teams we've shared, because I've made not 1, not 2, not 3, not 3, but 4 transfers.
Oh,
so I've
my
taken
goodness.
8.
Let's go.
So I'm going to tell you the thinking. I wanted Bowen and Ronaldo, right? And I wanted to sell Son and Tony, because those 2 guys are completely out. They've got COVID. So we don't, those are easy outs. I could have gone 4.5 mid and Ronaldo, but I don't want that. I want Bowen. So then I think, okay, Armstrong isn't doing that great either. So who can I take Armstrong down to? I can take him down to a king. So now I have a 4.5 mid Ronaldo and king, but I don't have Bowen. So, and I'm thinking Alonso is not doing too great either. So Alonso can go to Dallo, and the 4.5 mid can become Bowen. So long story short, I did Alonso out, Son out, Tony out, Armstrong out for the guys. And I got in Dallo, Ronaldo, King, and Bowen. So basically the 4 guys who we've talked about in the template are the 4 guys who have got in. And the reason for the early transfers, look, I'm always one to say that, early transfers aren't right, but I had 0.0 after doing this. And I was thinking, who can I sacrifice out of these 4? Because Davis got COVID, I don't even have a bench. So I didn't want to go down from Dallo down to somebody else who's not going to play, who I won't like. I need this guy to actually be first bench. So I needed him. And then you start thinking the fact that Thomas Tuchel has said that he's going to rotate, he's going to rest players. So James may not even play. Ranić has said that he's going to rest players. It's a meaningless game. So I thought Ronaldo's not going to play. And Bowen is definitely not going to play as well because they have a dead rubber. So that was the thinking. Of course, it's COVID times. I would not advise anyone to do it. I wouldn't have done it if I had about 0.2, 0.3 to play with. I had 0 to play with. So I went in. It could basically come smack me on my face if there's another injury. But for now, what I feel is I have a team that looks like a wildcard team. So I've essentially bought a wildcard for 8 points.
Mini wildcard. Wow. I'm shocked. Knowing you, wow. I love it. I actually, because you know why? Everything we talked about today, you put it into your team. I mean, we're literally broke down the template or the new template that may emerge. Obviously, we might not be correct, but yeah, I like the theory here. I like how you explained why you take hits, and I think also the fact that you're in such a strong position. And I'm gonna speak on the captaincy here because a lot of people are tempted to go to Ronaldo captain in Norwich, and there's all this talk about why would you bring him in if you're not gonna captain him. I just don't buy that, right? I think that if you're in a good rank, I don't know what a good rank means. Maybe 100k, 200k even, right? I think 200k under. There's no real need to go for a different captain, right? So I really like what you did here. It sets you up strong. You probably can, bank the transfer for the next couple weeks, and unless something emerges, such as injuries and COVID and this and that. So, yeah, I love it. I'm gonna pick apart your brain on the Dallo pick and probably do it myself. So, well done,
Look,
bro.
Dallo is a risky pick. Dallo is a risky pick.
Uh-huh.
I don't want people to think I went for Dallo because I think he's nailed. I think he's a very, very good option. I'm taking a little bit of a punt from purely eye test that he could be the one. But then I'm also conscious that Dallo can become White or Ait Nouri or Loughton, because Burnley have a double game week coming as well.
Yeah,
I don't mind being wrong on him. I'd rather get him now and be wrong than miss the boat.
Yeah. Okay, so we're already 110. So let's go to my team real quick. Obviously, I took it on my iPhone, as you can see in the landscape, but I made the Kane to Ronaldo move to get the price rise in, and I'm probably tonight going to do Tony to Joshua King, because I think King is rising and Tony's dropping tonight. So I was going to make a move anyway. And if you look at my team, it's just the straightforward thing to do. I think I can overthink it. I can try to do this and that, but I have 2 free transfers, and if I do it, I still have money in the bank. And the Alonso one is the one I want to move on eventually. But with Leeds, and if both of them start, it may prove to be a good hold for this week. So I'm probably not going to move any other pieces for now. And I like how it's set up. Salah captain, and
it's fine.
yeah.
I mean, I'm jealous you got there without the hit.
Yeah.
Obviously, you suffered from not benefiting from the. It's actually, Son did better than Kane, so the people who had Son benefited, but actually have a bigger dilemma now to move to Ronaldo. So it's a little bit of, Kane owners deserve a little bit of this. The way things have fallen going to Ronaldo, although they always knew they were going to do that. I think Son owners are a little bit unlucky in the sense that if Son didn't have COVID, they were probably kept and didn't have to take hits to go to Ronaldo. But I think that's how it plays out. I'd rather have had Son like I did than Kane. So
yeah, I mean, I just want to, it's not showboating or anything, but the reason I brought in Bowen against Chelsea last week, and to be honest, I might have benched him because I was thinking about starting Livramento. So I got lucky in many ways, right? But the reason I brought in Bowen is because I knew I wanted him long term. And if I waited, because I was unsure about Ronaldo and Joshua King, because both of them had bad fixtures, and if I waited, then it would be an inevitable hit, right? So sometimes I think it's good to try to look a little bit into the future. It may not pay off, it may pay off, but in this case, it did help me a lot. So I do feel like I'm in a decent position. The last 2 game weeks have not been going my way, but great position to be in halfway through the season. And again, you have to think long term. The climbing up the ranks start in the second half of the season. It starts with the double game weeks. There's so much more time left, and easily you could drop 2, which is why we want to move towards a somewhat defensive team in the template. But template doesn't mean everything. Template also requires you to have the right combination of players, because you can have an 80% template team, I can have an 80% template team, but I could have a red arrow and you could have a green arrow. It just really depends on the chess pieces that you have. But it's been an amazing show. 113, should we do maybe a couple questions or end it here? What do you think, Pras?
I mean, if we have so many people on, yeah, sure.
Okay, we have so many people. I don't know if I can get through this. For our first time, I think we did pretty decently. So thank you so much, guys, for joining. And to have this many viewers is mind-boggling, and it's amazing. So let me read through. Do you see anything?
So Dan Bennett, who's obviously
nice
top 10 Hall of Fame manager, likes my move. So I'm very happy. Thank you, Dan. Now you can use the future transfers proactively. That's exactly it. So when you asked when I would take a hit, it's basically to be ahead of the game and be proactive. And so next week, let's say if there's an injury and somebody needs to move James out, they'll be behind the game because they'll be fixing James rather than getting Ronaldo or Bowen or fixing other things. So I think that makes, to me, playing the game a lot more fun, and I feel like I'm making better moves when I do that.
I have a good comment from Metallica01 here. Wolves could be a low scoring game. I do agree with this. I think there is the sneaky potential in captaining Ronaldo over Salah this week, but maybe that's more for guys who want to really climb up the ranks and feel very behind. Is that the right thing to do? Let's say you're in the 400-500K rank range and you care about rank. Is that the way you want to approach it, Pras, or do you kind of still know?
I sort of never answer the rank question because it should not matter if you're number 2 or number 400K. I mean, you have to pick the guy, unless the only place it matters if you think the decision is exactly the same. And then you have to choose between the two. You go for the high risk, which is the high EO, the low EO, or the low risk, which is the high EO option. So I don't know.
Okay, I think I'm having have the money to go to Antonio King, Ramsdale or De Gea for Sanchez. Thoughts? If you have that luxury move, yeah.
De Gea, I think because if you want to be different, they're equally good. So back to my previous answer, I think they're equally good. De Gea has the better fixtures. I think he's great.
Oh, this guy, Tuhin, has been asking a lot. Thanks for joining, Tuhin. He said you have to choose between Foden, Sancho, Rashford, and Bowen. I'm going to say you said Foden number 1 and Bowen number 2, right?
But in the reverse order, if Foden is still a doubt.
Yes. Okay, I think that's good. I think we covered a lot. A lot of these questions, you guys, if you kind of go through this video again, we pretty much answered all of it. So yeah, last question.
Kazi Haider says, who do you think is a great differential?
Oh, nice.
Gundogan, Bowen are both under 5% owned. It's actually crazy. The guy we've been talking about the whole stream, these are all differentials. This is the point. I mean, we went through the list in the beginning of this video, the top owned players over 20%, only 5 survive. So I think all of this is now a differential category. When you look at live FPL in 2 weeks, it'll look like your 70-80% template, but that's fine. That doesn't mean that these are all high owned players. They could be a template of low owned players in the top 10K. So I think you just need to get that difference in your mind. If everyone in top 10K owns Bowen, he's still 10% owned. He's still a differential.
Do Tottenham play the next game week 17, or is that a blank game week for Tottenham?
No, they play Leicester, but they could potentially ask for that. I mean, it's all up in the air. I think it's been confirmed now that they have 11 cases. Pretty much, I think for me, it guarantees that the Brighton game won't happen.
Yeah.
The Leicester game, we never know. We never know if that happens or not.
Okay, let's end it here, guys. Thank you again for joining. It's been a pleasure, and we will join next week with another burning series question series. So thank you, Pras. I enjoyed your time. It's been very, very fun.